Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with co-host Joshua Morgan, customer advocate at Drift. Of course, typically BDEX's co-founder and CEO David Finkelstein is typically here, but unfortunately he's dealing with the damage caused by Hurricane Ian. Our hearts do go out to everyone impacted by the devastation caused by the hurricane. In David's place, I'm excited BDEX's CTO, David Wellborn, who we call DW here at BDEX, is able to join and step in as co-host. So thank you so much for being here, DW. I know we did a podcast with DW. So if you go back in our earlier, like maybe our first, second, third episode, we have an entire interview with DW. So I highly suggest going to check that out and hearing about his background, because that is definitely interesting too. But thanks again for being here, DW.
I'm happy to be here.
And finally, today's guest is Sharad Varshney, founder and CEO of a data governance platform company called Oval Edge. Technology Headline puts him in a list of 50 successful Indian entrepreneurs in the US. Before creating Oval Edge, he was a principal architect with Hortonworks. And early on in the career, so prior to shifting to computer science at all, Sharad, you studied nuclear engineering, I was reading. And so it's really great to meet you, Sharad. You have a very diverse background, and we look forward to learning from you. We appreciate you being here. Could you please just start from the beginning and tell us your story? How you came to where you are today, a little bit about your company and how you guys are helping people there.
Thank you, Jessie, and thank you, DW and Joshua, for this podcast. I'm a nuclear engineer by my engineering degree, and went to the computer science field because I love computers when I was dealing with it, and it was in 2000. So it's been 20 years now, more than 20 years. And then after that, I started working in various nuclear power plant to implement their asset management software, which is for maintenance management. Then I got bored with it. It's over like 10 years. And then kind of after that, I moved and switched into the data career. And I realized that, okay, maybe something to do is in going into the data field is maybe more exciting. And when I came into the data field, I kind of like looked into this. This was, in 2015, when I realized that maybe 13 is the right time, when I was going through this field and realizing that this field is just so new and there's no proper principles out there comparative to when I was in the utility industries and the nuclear utilities industry. There was a lot of principles around governance, around everything needs to be done properly, and the data is what Wild West. So we realized that how important it is to kind of create you need to have some sort of a structure in the data field, and that's why I founded the company in 2013, kind of to do this more with the data and implement and put some sort of a structure into the data. So that's where I started the journey, and it went through a lot of ups and downs, and as if every founder goes through it. So kind of in the meantime, I was kind of figuring it out, and that going through a lot of downside, I would say, rather than upside. But in 2018 is when we have kind of acquired a funding, and we started scaling the company. Since 2018 to now, like 4 years, we are kind of like the scalability mode. And now at this point of time, we are like 250 plus people organization globally, and kind of like growing more and more. So that's the little bit journey about me. And again, thank you for having me in this podcast.
Wow, that's awesome. Man, it's super great to meet you. Appreciate you sharing that and being here. You are the first person that I've met that has a nuclear engineering background. So this is a new one for me. So I love it. If you could data governance is kind of a new term that I don't know if I've ever heard of that before. So if you could talk about kind of what it is, why is it important, and what should the viewers know about it that they don't already know?
Yeah, so I think that this term has been there around for a long time, like I would say like 20 years, but it's coming up now because even the data was not very, fancy words before that. So as the data is getting more important in everybody's life, and also the companies are started leveraging more and more data. they are figuring out that how do I leverage the data. So for example, let's say you have data sitting in ERP systems. You implemented various, say, procurement system. You have, over the period of time, you are implementing various things, and data is getting created there. Now the time has come to optimize these, optimize your supply chain, optimize your patient operation, optimize anything you want to optimize. You need data. So when people are, and on the side of this, what is happening in the Amazon and Google, they have shown that what the data can do. Like they have, like if you see the Amazon.com is successful because of data. Your Amazon.com versus mine looks different. While if you go to any other website, they look same, right? Because they are leveraging the data to personalize that. So how are they able to do it while other companies are not? Because they were, again, the pioneer into a lot of technology. They did it, but also they kinds of outsource the technology, and now the technologies are available on the mainstream. The technologies like Hadoop, which were started early on, and then there is a lot of big data technology like Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery. To there are a bunch of AWS, Microsoft is coming. Everybody is coming up with a bunch of technology where people can leverage data, more process the data. So the technology is there, and people are trying to do something with it, but they don't know how to, because they are hit by various things. The data is not trustworthy. They don't know whether this is the right information or not. So then, as they're trying to leverage this information, that's the problem they're coming up with. That okay, is this the right customer information, or should I either use somewhere else? Because it's also there in HR system. It's also there in ERP. It's also there in various systems. Which one is the right? Which one is wrong? We don't know. And can I use it or not? Legally, can I use it or not? That's also is a problem sometimes, because the regulators, when the data was sitting in the application, it was very easy. But let's say that there is a law which the European Union puts into it, and that say somebody lives in Europe, you cannot use his data. Although that there's one database which sits in the USA platform, which is sitting in the USA, but it's the European person. Now, how do I know this is a European person? I cannot leverage this. Suppose you process it, you're violating the law. The data in France have different zone than Italy. There is a different laws are there. But then not only that, there is the country locationalities are different GDPR laws, but also there are a lot of banking laws. Like suppose you are a banking financial companies. If you're reporting something, is this the right reporting information is there or not? Have you corrected everything correctly or not? So there are various issues around the management of the data, right? So how do you manage it? So to deal with all the issues around that, to kind of leverage it, the term data governance is not the term. It's generally companies are creating a department for data governance. That okay, this department or this organization structure or sub-organization would be responsible for ensuring all the data is working properly. And that's what the need for the data governance is coming up. What we generally call it drivers of data governance. Like as the more and more analytics is one of the biggest driver, but also because they want to leverage and consume the data to do more good with the data. But in order to do this, you have to navigate all the path to it, right? It's good that I can go from place A to place B, but I have to stop on they have to lay the road, but I have to stop on the red light. I have to do various things as well. So just like in the data also, you have to follow certain principles. And that's why the field of the data governance has came up. And that's why we created the product. But the field of the data governance is creating, that's the reason that more and more demand is also there for data governance.
Interesting. Yeah. So prior to the show, DW, you were mentioning, it's not a term you typically use. So I'm curious in terms of your perspective here on data governance. And looks like you're on mute, by the way, DW.
Yeah, I know. We have a lot of noise over here. Yeah, no, and also something else we were talking about and beforehand was having a common language, and naming things is very important. Giving things a mnemonic handle is very, very important in order to communicate with others. I'm sure a large part of what Sharad has to do is actually educate people as to what governance is before he can even tell them how to do it. And a lot of people like myself probably have the light bulb go off and say, oh yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing, but I just didn't know what to call it, you know. And without having it clearly defined, well, then you don't address it properly. You may have to do it halfway or leave some holes in it, but looking at it as a complete discipline will provide a lot more value to those who actually do it.
Absolutely. And Sharad, backstage prior to the show, you were also mentioning, I can't remember the name you gave it, but you said you had, 3 sort of tips. It was integrity, something, and access. Which one am I missing? Yeah. That was good.
I would say that there are 3 pillars of the data governance. One is the data literacy. The second is data quality. And the third is data access.
How could I forget? That's so important.
Data access. Yeah. So how does it work is that, like, say, the objective of data. So when you are creating a data governance group, they have certain objectives. The objective is providing the high quality, trustworthy data to everyone, right? That's their objective they're going after. And so in order to achieve this objective, they need to make sure that, like, people should have right access. That means that the data in countries, the locationality, the policies around data access has properly been written, right? So there is not only the PII data, which is privacy confidential data. Because of the law, you have to protect it. But there's a confidential data. For example, your salary information. The law is not protecting it. You can give it to everybody, but it's not in companies' interest to give each other, people can see each other's salary, right? The same thing is about revenue number. Maybe you're a private company. You may not want to disclose the revenue number. Maybe, and then also, what about the lead amount? Like, so the something, like, for example, suppose you have a deal and it's okay to get out one deal per person, like, that's okay. If the salespeople know some deal amount, that's obviously they know it. But you do not want people to know the whole sum of all the deal, because it becomes confidential information, because I can project what my revenue number would be, because I can see all the deals in the pipeline. So those are the various policies you have to write in order to manage the access. And those policy written this comes under the access management of this. Then the second is the data literacy. Literacy means exactly as DW said, that having the right definition to the thing, to the data, we call it. I will give you a very recent example of, like, Twitter reported that our fraud rate is 5%, less than 5%. And Elon Musk said that, okay, I will buy a company for $44 billion. This is very good. And then after that, they said that, okay, by the way, how do you calculate your fraud rate? Right. And say, we surveyed 100 people, and out of that 5 found fraud. I said, that's not the definition I was imagining of the fraud rate. Like fraud rate is there, but your definition versus my definitions are different, and there's a communication problem between that. And that communication problem is lead down to $1 billion lawsuit. Now they are trying to work it out, because of they're trying to find the loophole or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But there is a problem because of the data literacy. When the term defined do not have the right definition to it. Although there are a lot of terms, when you report to SECs, they are very well governed. Very well, when SECs tell you what is the revenue, what is the total revenue, how do you calculate it. And that's where you need to have a data governance program to calculate all the way to the source. Because this ultimately you are reporting the final number, but the number comes from various balance sheet, various information which the company collects. And imagine if you miss something in between, or you didn't report it. So a lot of financial fraud has been committed in the past, where you do not report properly. And then after that, you can kind of, make a lot of money if the company is public, or you can trade. So those are the areas that the literacy is very important. And you start from the key data element from there, and then you move forward to a little less key. And the second is the quality, or the third one, it's all 3 are equally important. The third one is the data quality. When I say that, like, the data is clean, nice, so you can enhance it better. You can there are a lot of null values are not there. When I say something, the quantity field actually represent quantity, not the price. The price actually represent the price. It's when I say unit price is actually unit price, not the list price. So the quality of the data is everywhere. Is a big topic always. So how do we ensure the data quality?
We can talk data quality all day, right, DW? I mean, it's part of what we do, is we have proprietary software that helps make sure that people are targeting actual people in their ads, and, improving the return on ad spend by not targeting bots and fraudulent, Twitter accounts out there. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge problem, and it's costing marketers, advertisers a lot of money. So it's a really big topic. I don't know, DW, anything you would want to add on data quality?
Yeah, well, in our world, data quality has a different like slant to it, maybe than like a internal data use, like a large company might have. But in our case, our data is our product. It's not to help improve our other product that we're making, whether it be cars or other stuff. Or a website that sells something. We actually sell the data. So any improvement in that quality has a direct bottom line impact. And it's not as intuitive as you might think, because we get paid on volume. And so there are many data companies that are happy to give you stuff that's less than stellar if you're paying these volume CPMs. It's a cost per thousands. We decided was it 3 years ago now, that we were going to sacrifice volume for equality, just because it was the right thing to do. We wanted to have the name BDEX associated with data quality. We thought that was more important than actually the next sale. And so we expected for a short time maybe a hit on income. And surprisingly enough, the exact opposite happened. The same people who were buying from us ended up ordering more because it had such a good impact. They said, this is worth it. And we no longer competed on price, but on value. And so it's an eye-opening experience, really.
So I'm kind of curious, Sharad, on your 3 pillars. So where does data culture fit in? Where would you put that under data governance? Is it in all the pillars?
So those are the 3 pillars. But now, in order to facilitate those areas, right? These are the 3 objectives, I would say. In order to facilitate these objectives, you have to change your data culture. You need a technology stack. You need a tools. So there are various things you will need in that area. So that comes under the enabler to facilitate the data governance. Data culture is key component of that. Especially the culture driven by the people, and and how do you understand? It's a more of like literacy word, but in the quality also you need a culture and literacy also, and the access is kind of like policy, and you draft it and the tool can manage it. But in order to do the data literacy and quality, both the culture is highly important in that. As well as building new data products, you need a good culture which can understand the customer, understand the product, understand the data. All 3 things people need to understand. Then only they can build a new data products. It's the time has gone where people can say, okay, here is the requirement, build a software for me. Data products are not built like that. You need to know what the data is. And that's why it's you cannot hire a consultant, for example, like for example, you can hire a consultant to build the software for you, right? But if you want to hire a consultant to build a data product for you, it will be very difficult, because they actually need to work with the data you have, and you need to provide what exactly really it is, because it's sitting in your database, and only the subject matter expert knows what exactly it is. They need to understand that, and they need to do it. So it's very collaborative culture is needed. You cannot. That's where the importance of the data and the governance, everything is there, because culture is the key pillar of key kind of glue to kind of glue things together.
So you would say that data governance or this methodology that you employ would actually enable the rest of the organization to actually use the data. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly. So the what we are preaching is that you need to have a data governance group. The governance group basically will preach about data literacy. And literacy is like telling everybody what the data is, what kind of standards they should use. And when everybody is literate about the data, then only you can start building a new data product. Because when the business people talk with the legal people, talk with the data, they are aware of what information it is, what we really have, what we do not have, what we need to buy from BDEX, what we need to do something, right? You need to bring all this information together, then they can build a new data products. A new data product can be a recommendation engine, can be some sort of a machine learning model which can predict that when the patient is going to die, for example, or patient is going to be cured. So there can be a variety of use cases, and the use cases are unlimited, whatever the company is, right? So if the company is we had a patient company, kind of a healthcare company, which was predicting how their their appeal reduction is going to happen. So they were kind of they are projecting that if they file the claim to the claim department, to the insurance company, when they file the claim, sometimes the claim get denied, and this company's whole responsibility is they claim that our claim denial rate is less than 6%. But when they implemented the data governance program, the claim went down from 6% to 3.5%. And now that's a direct value to their top line, because now they can say that if we have implemented this data governance program, and now we can do less claim, because they are predicting that when something is going to go down. So they're creating a better business model, better model to predict that what is going to happen if I fill up the claim correctly. So there are various use cases after use cases are there, which can kind of create the value of the data. But you cannot create those use cases unless you have a data culture, until you have a clean data, and people have access to the data. And that's the methodology which we are talking about.
Well, I mean, I didn't think that, one topic would take us already in 25 minutes in, but I think it's a good time to transition to data management trends, if you guys don't mind. Good stuff on data governance. But Sharad, could you please talk to the viewers about data management? First, I guess, start from the basics to explain, what data management is, and work into some of the trends that more seasoned professionals might appreciate.
Yeah. So data management and data governance kind of go hand in hand, right? When we talk about data management, we are talking more about like storage, where the data will be stored, where it will be it will be kind of processed. So these are the various areas people are thinking about managing the data altogether. Governance comes around the policies, etc. Like, how do I manage the policy? How do I manage the quality? How to change the cultural shift? But the management is about like physical. How would I store the data? Where would I would process the data? Where I will provide access to the data? So the security of the data is a big part of the data management. So all these things you have to do in order to do the data management, and that's where the companies want to do the data. Like, they want to do data management and data governance together to kind of make sure that they can do it, right? So that's the one thing which is people are realizing that they have to do it. Now, what the trend is happening is that there are a variety of ways. Earlier, people thought that they can do analytics. So earlier thought people was that, okay, we will put all the data at one place, which is a big data store, and we will process all the data there, and they call it data lake, right? So that was the one trend which was going on like till so far, that you put all the data at one place and kind of like after that start managing it. Then the second trend, which is now coming up, hey, by the way, it's too much data movement is happening in order to put data onto the data lake. What about if we can keep the data wherever it is, right? Keep the data wherever it is, but connect with the data catalog. We provide data catalog as a part of our offering. But connect this with the data catalog and do it virtually in the sense that, okay, people give access to the data through the data catalog, and let them do what the data they need. And whatever the data they need, just point only that much data to the data lake or technology, whatever is needed, like Snowflake or BigQuery or Redshift or something like, or Synapse, whatever you put it there, and then process it and then analyze it, right? So that's a second set of requirement, which is kind of a trend is emerging, and people started calling this as a data mesh. It's kind of creating a data mesh ecosystem. That's one of the things. And then other companies like Gartner is saying, by the way, that this whole concept we calling is data fabric. Now, what is the difference between the mesh and fabric? Again, different methodologies to work together, but the data mesh and data fabric, they both are saying that keep the data wherever it is and glue it with the data catalog. like combine this with the data catalog. While earlier trend was put all the data into the one place to analyze the data. So this is the something which is like quite a bit happening in the space of the data management, data governance altogether combined. And where does the governance fit in? Where does the whether it's a data fabric, whether it's a data mesh, they both have a specific frameworks that how do you apply in order to manage it. And but ultimately the companies will choose what is right for them, what is common sense for them. And again, these are very, very vaguely defined terms. It does not have a very standard business practices, right? It's or very defined guidelines. It's even vague that even the, because I have read quite a bit like GDPR laws, etc. These are very specific. These one are way vague than like you can even think of it. But it's a conceptually keep the data wherever it is and start analyzing it and glue this with the data catalog. And after that, you start, give the self-service platform to all the business, establish data literacy, establish the pattern for data quality, do this, and then you start managing it. So those are the trend which I see, which is happening in the marketplace.
I am wondering why somebody hasn't, or people haven't come together, because you have, depending on where you're at, you've got all these how you can use data and like what, the ways you can use it depending on where you live, what country you're in, and things like that. So why have we not come together and just like said, okay, France does this, Germany does this, United States does this, like, why don't we just have a standard set of best practices just to make it like it, to me, it feels like it's making it more difficult than it needs to be. And I understand that people will disagree and stuff like that, but there has to at least be at the heart of it some truth on what is best practices and what is not, and what is honest and what is, where the integrity is. And so why have we not come together and said, this is kind of the universal set of best practices or standards that we want like across the board?
When does people agree? Always, if the people agree, then we will not have any war. We will be happily ever after, right? This is a fundamental question about human. Human are not.
We're so
human
imperfect.
are human. We are, and then if we were perfect, then this is what you are saying is the ideal world. I wish we could have it. I wish our philosophy is the main philosophy. Then our competitors say no, to choose my philosophy. Now there's nobody will take their philosophy. Even like I come from the nuclear utility world. Even there is a nuclear utility regulatory board. Even maintenance people, they always like, oh, okay, do this that way. They're trying to influence the utility board in the common maintenance practices. And oh, I will create a preventive maintenance procedure. They will say, no, we will create it. We'll create ad hoc procedure. There is no best practice. There's no best practices. The one best practices we agree upon it is the credits and debits, right? You think about it in the accounting. A common sense person will not write, if you ask your son or something, hey, by the way, I took the money from this, can you report it? He will write it, okay, he took the money from me. He will not write it, he credit this one and debit somebody. It's not a common sense. But this is a best practice now, commonly adopted, but took like years to figure it out and happen. So I think the same thing will go with data governance. I think it will take, by the time we will create a common practice, I think we will be much more mature. I think the common practices will be evolved by softwares mostly. If you think around it now, that there is a lot of maintenance practices, a lot of invoicing best practices has been created because the software is allowed, and there's some merger and acquisition and SAP and Oracles of the world. And again, they both are differs, but they kind of like merged into it. So the same thing, the software companies will again start doing this. We are creating this. Our competitors are also doing it. They're creating a best practice. They do my way. They do their ways. And some people, whoever will be successful, or I don't know whether we will be successful or not. Like depending upon like multiple companies are doing multiple banner, and there may be multiple successful companies. There in some areas there is a lot of merger and acquisition happen. In some areas still there is a lot of trends which we are doing. Like for example, there is a ticketing system, right? There is multiple ticketing systems are there. There's no like invoicing system. There are multiple are there. and at least more than 10, and there's more than 10 business practices are there in every kind of software you choose it. And everybody configures the software their way also. And every software says that you can configure my way. So every organization is different, and it's just human are different, and that's imperfection of human makes it hard, I would say. But there is an attempt is going on to do this, and we are working on that area. But the problem is that some people will not accept it. Like most people have their own ways of handling it.
I gotcha. As soon as I said that, I thought one world data. That's the end times.
We need to work on our global data culture.
Yeah, it is difficult. Even the European did the very good thing. The whole European Union consolidated and said there's a one law, GDPR. In US, we have started seeing the problem. Like California came up with the CCPA. Now Nevada is starting. So the Fed is saying maybe we should pass a law, but it's not yet passed by the US. So there are different states are trying different. Virginia is writing the laws as well. So other countries, states have started writing it. And imagine that 50 states have different kind of laws.
Oh,
and
man.
It's hard to manage it. Hopefully they agree on and they write a law which is like central. But California always been like the initiative in most of these kind of things. So the law is in place like more than 4 years now.
Yeah, I guess California at least is getting us marketers and advertisers prepared for what could come, for the rest of the country. DW, is there anything on data management you would like to add before we move into the third topic?
Oh, I thought I was muted. No, he's right about the whole data lake and data mesh movement. That's becoming basically passed me by for the most part. It's very hard to have a coherent system when you have it so spread out. So you can have islands of functionality around these, which would work fine. But I've always ended up worrying about where do you draw the line? How much freedom do you give people to access this data? Data hidden behind a wall isn't of much value to anybody. But then letting people access it directly and join it with another source of information on the reporting thing that they're doing, and they end up projecting billions of dollars in revenue just because of a wild mistake, and they go running to their managers saying, "Hey, check this out, we're going to make a lot of money." Well, obviously that's a mistake, but data has to be in a way that is safe to use. And it's not just from a security point of view, but it's also just from an operational point of view. You don't want to have to do the queries for everybody. You want to enable everybody to self-serve, but there's ways of organizing the data in a way that makes it very difficult to make these wild mistakes. And that's my only real, feedback about having federated systems everywhere. You just glue together. You have to be very, very, very careful with that.
Definitely. So this is always my favorite topic. Josh, take it away.
All right. So what are your favorite tools in your tech stack currently or in the past that you've used?
So in order to build the data ecosystem, obviously one of the favorite is which is Overledge, is obviously because we are selling the software. So that's the key pillar for data catalog and doing the data quality, kind of writing the data quality rules, etc., etc. Those are the things of the Overledge. You can do it. Then you need a data warehouse kind of tech to kind of store the data, right? Again, in this is a lot of competition going on between Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery, Databricks versus Azure Synapse. Those are the 4 or 5 big competitors. And again, those are so big. Every company is quite big right now that I wouldn't, because we partnered with everybody, I would not choose one of them over that, because it's just all are pretty big, all have pros, plus and minuses in that area. but those are the key players in this space. Then you have a visualization tools, and visualization tools is again Tableau, Power BI. Those are the prime player. Then you have Click is another one. Again, those are all our partners, and again, customers choose, and we have overlay create connectors to all these different systems to connect everything together. Then you have ETL technologies. ETL technology bring the data from source systems into data warehouse and or wherever it needs to be. In that there is a Matillion is there, Fivetran. Those are new companies and emerging companies are coming up, as well as the old technology companies are there, like IBM, like Informatica, like those are the various talent. There are various ETL technologies out there as well. So those are the bringing the data from source systems into the system, right? So this is what the technology system look like for anybody to build it, and then overlay sits in the middle or it's the top, kind of governing every part of it, monitoring every part of it, and kind of glue things together, right? And then you need some sort of a tag to write your AI models, right? Like people are writing in Python or people are writing in Spark. Those are the two most languages people write in their business, model to build the AI. And SQL is the key of everything. Like SQL is one of the key technology, which is tool or language, whatever we call it, is used to really value build the products of the next generation. So those are the I would say that the typical tech stack, what I'm seeing across to build any data platforms out there.
Thanks for sharing that. Well, we have 6 quick minutes left. If we wanted to mention anything about the article we had planned. So, our 4th topic, we always try to choose a current event. So we found one around modern data management. And it was about, it was from IT Pro. I'll put the link in the comments. But an inside an auto chain's pursuit of modern data management. And so it was a story really of digital transformation. And so just like to get, everybody's take on that story and anything that might stand out to you. Sharad, I guess I'll start with you if you don't mind.
Sure. I think that the trend which is happening about the digitization or digital revolution or whatever we the word we are giving it, right? Ultimately, what people want to do, people want to put bits and bytes on every thing what we do and do digitally, right? That's ultimately what we are trying to do. Whether we are walking from place A to place B, earlier that was not known. Now we are putting in this bits and bytes. We are tracking. Okay, I don't know. One of my friend is a big fan of. He keeps all the time Apple Watch on, so he's tracking. Oh, how many hours I sleep? Earlier you're sleeping, and now you're tracking everything. So everything is getting digitized, and since we are getting digitized, there's a lot of data, right? And that's where the digital revolution is happening, digital transformation. So that every organization is also changing. Like I know that a lot of retail organization, earlier though you buy things, you do things. Now people are buying digitally, people are buying online, people are buying differently. So you need to support that, you need to enable them to do. So every organization is going through the digital transformation. They need to understand that how things need to happen digitally, and how can they transform their organization, especially like I know I came from a lot from utility companies, right? Even they are very secure companies. If you think around it, like there is not much competition. If there's a Georgia Power, they have the contract. There's not much if you think about it, right? They are very secure companies. They provide good dividend and everything is good with them. But even they are thinking like, how can I use even the data or the digital transformation? And they are thinking around in the area of how can I collect the data from the machines, and how the machines, which is the new word coming with IoT, how can I optimize my maintenance procedures? How can I optimize how can I do maintenance sort of every 3 months? Can I do 4 months, 5 months? I can save some dollars there, right? And I say, because their charter is their customers is their charter. So they want to save the money for them rather than doing unnecessary maintenance, right? So so they are also, every organization is thinking. And other side, there is a retail which is highly competitive, healthcare is highly competitive, banking super competitive area, so they have to digitally transform. On the other side, there are companies which is less competitive, but they are also thinking about digital transformation. They have to, otherwise they're realizing that they will go out of business, because there is a competition anyway, anyhow it's there. And if in order to compete, you have to do digital transformation, and digital transformation starts from data. I don't think it starts from anything else. Putting all the tools and technologies is not the digital transformation. It's putting this, measuring, collecting the data, and after that, start optimizing it. That's what the digital transformation is. Amazon is probably the front runner in this area. That's why they are. You see that how much optimized, how much supply chain they have optimized, everything they are optimizing to the level that they're able to serve their customer way better than probably other competitors cannot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What might you add to pick on you, DW?
No, I was just listening to him and pretty much agreeing with everything that he says. I mean, he made some notes here to add to it. But what you're talking about is basically companies have realized the need to be data driven. Without data, I've been in these meetings. We all have. We have 20 experts sitting around a table, and they're trying to solve a problem, and nobody has any data. And all you hear are out of 20 people, you hear 21 opinions. But you walk in a room with actual hard data, the conversation changes instantly from trying to decide the what, and it jumps to the how are we going to use this to fix the problem or improve a situation. So that's the power of data, and that's what we're talking about. And to that end, a lot of times companies will say, well, we got to do this, and then they run and say, well, let's hire some data scientists, and they stick them in a cubicle and give them an account on Amazon or Google or whatever, and say, go crazy, and they're like, they're surprised when they don't see anything come out of that in 6 months. You have to always ask yourself what it is you want to do with the data. So if you're in manufacturing and you have tons of data on the average weight of koala bears in Australia, and you're tracking this, it has nothing to do with your business, So why are you doing that? So it's a bad example. Maybe I love koala bears. I would probably do it, but the fact is, what are you trying to measure? What are you trying to improve? Usually, that's what the discussion comes around to. Is like, what are we trying to improve upon? Well, then you start saying, well, what would be a KPI around that? What data would be needed to support this? And that's what this article also alludes to, is that operationally they're making decisions as to what to observe, and to that end, then you start making decisions as to what to measure and store. A lot of times people will say, well, we have this data, let's see if we can do something with it. Well, you still have to ask yourself, what do you want to do? You can't just throw machine learning algorithms at something without some goal in mind, So I found that I got that from the article, basically.
Yeah, and I put the link of the article in the comments, but for those who will hear this later on our podcast, you can find it under itprotoday.com. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for the Deconstructing Data podcast. Believe it or not, it's 5:01. I can't believe it. I have the hard job of stopping the conversation every week. But, in conclusion, in closing, we wanted to let the viewers know that we are on more channels now. So not only can you find us on podcasts, you can find us on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. I mentioned Spotify, Salescast. There's a few others. So you can go to our website, BDEX.com, find all of our new channels, including TikTok, Josh. So you'll want to check out some of those video clips there of the Deconstructing Data podcast. Also, if you found this interesting, you might also find OmniIQ very interesting. So if you're on BDEX.com, just click on the Try OmniIQ for free button, and you simply upload a CSV file of your first-party customer data, first-party voter data, whatever data you have with emails or PII. There's a couple other ways you can match it, but we'll give you complimentary analytics that includes gender, household income and birth year on your first party data. So it does all that and more. If you need to check it out, we would love it. Please be sure to leave any feedback. There is a place in the app to share feedback on it. And it's still being molded. It's new. So, your feedback is really impactful right now. So we'd really appreciate anyone getting in there, clicking around and letting us know what you think. And also we'd love to hear from listeners. So if you have any feedback about the Deconstructing Data podcast, please let us know. Reach out to info@bdex.com and share your qualitative data with us. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Really appreciate all of your time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to close us out here.
Bye-bye.